Hey there, everybody out on the interwebs. Welcome to another edition of History and a Drink. I'm Sean.
And I'm Frank. And tonight we are going to be looking at and tasting the drink, the Saturn.
The Saturn, which is actually a lovely drink right over here. Gin-based.
Yep.
So at the Bahat. Ooh, that's very good. That is good.
So today's lesson, we're going to be looking at the Space Coast here in Florida. So the whole deal with it actually goes back to the 1940s with missile technology, and they needed a place to launch missiles.
Exactly. And just a little quick recap for those of you guys out there who aren't from Florida. One of the things that Florida does is most of the population is around the coast. So they take little chunks of the area and they name it after. We have the Gold Coast, we have the Sun Coast, the Treasure Coast, and we have the Space Coast, which that embodies.
It's basically from Titusville down to Melbourne, mostly in Brevard County.
Gotcha.
And that is where they set up Cape Canaveral, and it's based around that and Patrick Air Force Base.
Yeah.
So they needed a place with this new missile technology to do that.
And this is back in the 40s.
Back in the 40s. So right after World War II, we saw the Nazis had used tons of missiles, the V-1 and the V-2 to attack Britain and other places, so that we were going to develop that technology too. So those missiles, we needed a place to do it. And this area of the coast at that time, on the East Coast, there was nothing there.
Gotcha. So we know that we had stuff up in Jacksonville in that area, and obviously Miami and stuff was developed, but nothing in the middle.
Right. And so there's this big peninsula out there where they're going to build this, and it's just big sand dunes and stuff like that, and nothing. So it's perfect for them to build this. So as we look at the development of that, they are going to then use it as well, because it's the farthest place south in the continental United States, and they want to be able to use the movement of the Earth to help with the rocket trajectories.
And what do you mean? Because we're close to the equator?
Yeah. So the spinning of it. And then also they're launching it out into the Atlantic Ocean. So if there's a mishap, it blows up over the ocean, and hopefully not too many people. Now, it was one of three places they were contending. They were going to do it either on the Texas coast, Florida coast, or in Puerto Rico. So this one just happened to work out the best with being able to supply the materials and all of that kind of stuff. And they already had some military installations up and down this coast from World War II. If you go there and you just go a little bit south of the Space Coast, there is the SEALs Museum. So the underwater frogmen developed there, and then the SEALs were developed there in that area of Florida as well. So when we look at the Space Coast, one little fun fact that I found is, remember when cell phones were starting to come out, and all these cell phone companies, and they needed to expand the area codes?
Yeah.
So at that time, one of the people who lived in the Space Coast saw that 321 was going to be available and petitioned for it to get that, so they could have the countdown.
Which that is currently now still the thing. So the countdown for launching rockets is the same as the area code they have there. That was
right, exactly, which I thought was quite funny. And then two big numbers that I saw were the two big launches for them in history were the Apollo 11 mission, where they had in 1969 750 to 900,000 people present to see that. And then the only one that was more was the very last shuttle launch, which had over roughly 1 million people to see that. And I know when my son was little, we tried to go multiple times to see a shuttle launch, but every time it just seemed to be canceled and stuff like that. We didn't have the ability to keep driving back and forth over there. So it really turns into NASA after the launch of Sputnik.
Which Sputnik was by the Russians. That was the first satellite to go into space.
Right. And so that was 1957, and we see NASA created in 1958. Right. And then this area gets designated for NASA. And we see that there are 5 major programs that happen there.
Okay.
So we have the Apollo program, we have the Mercury program, the Gemini program, Skylab, and the Space Shuttle program. So the first one was the Mercury project, and that is to put a man in space. So the Russians beat us to that. They
Yep.
put Yuri Gagarin in first, but our first guy into space was Alan Shepard, right? And he just went into space, then came back. And another astronaut, Gus Grissom, was the second man to do the same thing. And then
these were single man launched ships. The whole Mercury program was just a one person.
One person. All right. And before that, they were sending up animals and chimps and things like that. Then the culmination of this is to orbit the Earth. And we're the first country to send someone who orbits the Earth, and that's John Glenn. And he orbits the Earth 3 times in 1962. Then we see the move to Project Gemini. And so Project Gemini is 2-man spacecraft.
Okay.
And so they're going to build on that, and that takes place for about 2 years. All right. And then it's to the big one, the Apollo project. And this is
on the big Saturn rockets.
Yep. And exactly. And that is based on the idea of going to the moon, which John F. Kennedy said during his speech in 1962, that was going to be the goal of America, was to put someone on the moon by the end of the 1960s. And that idea of the Apollo projects becomes synonymous with a great task in American history. We always talk about we need another Apollo project or something like that. All right. Then there's Skylab, which is our first
space station.
Right.
Yep.
Now it lasted for 2 years. There was 3 missions to it, and eventually those Skylab is going to orbit degrades.
And it loses and crashes.
Exactly. And then finally, the one that we're most familiar with is the shuttle program. And when I was looking at it, I didn't realize how many actual shuttle missions there were and how long they went. So the first shuttle launch was in 1981, and the last one was in 2011.
So, I mean, it's almost a 30-year period that everything's going across.
Yeah. And we are only going to have 5 that actually go in space, and then we have a test one, the Enterprise.
Right.
So the 4 or the 5 are the Columbia, the Challenger, the Discovery, the Atlantis, and then the Endeavour gets added, and that gets added after the Challenger accident.
They only plan on having 4 of them.
Correct. And so they added another one, built another one when we lost the Challenger. The Challenger is going to be the one I remember watching it.
I do too.
I was homesick from school that day. And I also remember when the Columbia had its accident as well. I was up visiting my friend Kevin at St. Bonaventure, and we had a fun night the night before, and we were enjoying that next morning after, getting ourselves ready to go out and have more fun. So that it was also one, but they were coming at re-entry.
Right.
And it broke up.
Well, the craziest thing to me is how many people out there have a 30-year-old car, right? So imagine having a 30-year-old spaceship. So that's getting you in space and getting you around. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. But there was 135 missions total for the shuttles, of which they sent 355 different people into space. But there was a total of 852 people in all of the missions.
So a lot of them went twice.
Yeah, multiple times. And did different jobs on them and stuff like that. So I thought that was kind of interesting, because when you look at it too, with the Challenger, it created this idea of who is going to go into space. Yeah. Because with the Challenger, you had the Teacher in Space program.
The very first one.
Right. And that was an initiative by Ronald Reagan to kind of get education into it and really get more people in the education system involved. Unfortunately, that backfires.
Yeah.
And Christina McCullough.
Yeah.
McCullough is going to be the first teacher in space, and unfortunately, with the accident there. So there were tons and tons of firsts at Cape Canaveral as well, and it goes through a bunch of different names. So it is Cape Canaveral first.
Yeah. Then
it goes to Kennedy Space Center. Then it goes back to Cape Canaveral, and now it is tied with Patrick Air Force Base, and it is the home of our 6th branch of the military.
The brand new one?
Yeah, the brand new one.
The
Space Force.
Space Force.
Yeah, not Star
Not
Force.
Star Force. Space
Not
Force.
Star Wars. Not Star Trek. Even though when you look at the logo, you might think of Star Trek. So it's kind of interesting there, and there are a bunch of units that are stationed there that are in charge of all the East Coast defense using rocket technology and stuff. So I tried to do some research on that, and there wasn't a ton about.
You didn't get a knock on the door from the guys in the black suits.
No,
why are you studying this?
But their mission is quite interesting. It says the Space Force is responsible for organizing, training, and equipping Guardians to conduct global space operations that enhance the way our joint and coalition's forces fight. What the hell are Guardians?
I don't know what.
All right. Now, the
Isn't
Guardians.
that the new team in Cleveland?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So are they training? Is that baseball training down there?
I don't know.
Or is it? Do they already know about the Guardians of the Galaxy? Have they come and shown up and stuff?
I have no idea.
So it's quite funny when they use this terminology and we don't really know what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah.
But that area also has been in a ton of pop culture.
Yeah.
So tons of movies were made about it or at that facilities. You can think of like Armageddon.
Of course.
You can think of Apollo 13 with Tom Hanks. Transformers, Space Cowboys.
Yeah.
My favorite one though was Sharknado 3. Oh hell no! Right? And it moves it to Florida, and they have to contend with not just Sharknadoes, but a Sharkicane.
The Sharkicane, yes, the hurricane with sharks. Exactly.
Yeah. So it just off the wall.
Yeah.
Right. There was lots of TV shows as well. Biggest and the most popular one came in the 1960s, and that was I Dream of Jeannie, right, with Barbara Eden.
Yep.
And it's set all there with the rockets and everything like that. And then we have the astronaut.
Well, he was an astronaut too, so
right.
That was it.
Right, and they meet because he lands
in his pod.
In his pod on an island and finds that. But it's also known for lots of other things too. So when you go over there, it's really known for also surfing.
Yep.
Because you have Cocoa Beach there. And that's just a little bit south.
Which the funniest thing is, as far as the world goes, Cocoa Beach in the east coast of Florida is not the best waves going. However, arguably the best wave surf writer in the world is Kelly Slater, and that's where he's from. He's from Cocoa Beach.
Yeah. And so you have Ron John Surf Shop there. And then especially during the 1950s and 60s, the hotels, the restaurants and stuff like that were all space themed.
Yeah.
And so when you go there, there's still some of those old hotels, kind of like this one.
Yep.
That have these old themes, and they're being renovated and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
And then there's all kinds of like trivia places to go there, and it's a historical area now because of the rocket launches and everything. So it's kind of really a cool little place to go and see if you haven't had the opportunity to go there. So now there was tons of firsts that happened there because this is where we see the rocket launches and stuff. So that's where we put the first man into space. Yep. We put the first man on the moon is launched from there. And the biggest one, or the one that I found the most fascinating, is so the first spacecraft to leave the solar system was launched there in 1977, Voyager.
Yeah.
They sent a spacecraft was launched there that has traveled to each planet in the solar system and taken pictures.
Okay.
Right. And that happened between 1978 and 2004. Okay. Right. So we have sent missions there that have landed on Mars, on Venus. We've been able to send vehicles around on Mars and pick up rocks and send all that information back. So there was a lot of real learning that was going on there as well. And I think that is what, for students and stuff like that, is kind of the cool thing to go and see, is the history of what we were able to do and all of that.
Absolutely. So, and especially just thinking that, Florida, the same soil that we're walking on, that this is where everything started from, that's going out throughout the whole solar system.
Right.
So excellent.
And it's kind of cool too, because Florida is so narrow that in the right conditions, we can see the launches from here. And they still are doing rocket launches there currently, so you can still go there and watch them. What Elon Musk and some of the other programs, SpaceX, are doing that. So that's just a little bit about the Space Coast. So next week we're going to be
diving into the Cobra Fang.
So
a little bit of a secret lesson on that one.
Now, if you can, please go ahead and do a review for the Buy-Hi Hut, for us at the Buy-Hi Hut. Tag us in your Facebook feed or whatever social media you use. There's so many out there, I can't keep up. And all of that stuff, so that we can keep spreading this information out there and do that.
And if you guys are in the area, of course, like our studio audience is here, we follow up with a fun night of trivia afterwards. So come have a drink with us, play a little fun trivia, and have a good night.
All right. Enjoy.
Excellent.